For those of you who are old enough, you remember this, but for those of you who aren't, kids, in the old days, cameras used to have strips of plastic in them. And they used to have different sizes of strips of plastic. We used to have one called a 110. A 110 camera had this little cartridge that went in it, and it was a thin little strip of plastic, and the real photographers never used 110s. Because it was considered really amateur. But the rest of us all had 110s, and they had magic cubes on top of them. Does anybody remember magic cubes? Magic cube was a flash cube that actually had the battery built into it, so that the camera could be so cheap that it didn't even have to have a battery in it. The camera was purely mechanical, and when you'd press the button, a little thing would stick up into the flash bulb, and it would release, and you could set off flash bulbs with a paper clip. You didn't even have to have a camera, which was an awful lot of fun, but don't burn your fingers. Now, when I was young, though, we had two kind of cameras. There was no such thing as a DSLR, because that stands for digital, right? And of course, memory was so expensive that at that time that to take one photograph would have cost $300 or $400. So we couldn't do that. So what we had was SLRs, and then we had what was called rangefinders. Anybody remember a rangefinder camera? A rangefinder camera was a camera that had a viewing port separate from the lens. You didn't look through the lens with all the fancy mirrors. They were good cameras, many of them were, and the famous one was a Leica. Leica made a rangefinder camera that was very nice, very expensive, took gorgeous pictures. Many of the great photographs taken throughout the 1930s, 40s, and 50s were taken with rangefinder cameras. So one day, I got a promotion in the mail, and it said, you will either receive, guaranteed, and it had 3 gifts. And one of them was a rangefinder camera that looked just like my father's beautiful rangefinder camera. And I thought for sure that would be cool to have. So I sent off in faith of receiving some great gift, and I got back a 35 millimeter camera. That simply means it used 35 millimeter film. It didn't mean that there was any glass in the lens. The lens was a pinhole lens. Everybody know what a pinhole lens is? You don't actually have any glass. It's just small enough that things tend to focus if they're bright enough. And by bright enough, I mean outdoor in full sunlight. And so I had this pinhole camera, completely plastic, absolutely no value to it whatsoever. And I was very, very disappointed. And the question, of course, comes, when do we trust people to give gifts? When do we trust people at what they say? See, mailings like that ruin our ability to trust, don't they? When we get a gift in the mail and it turns out not to be so much of a gift. When somebody says, I'll give you a 30-day free trial, that's the big gift these days, right? And then after 30 days you get a bill? Right. Hardly really a gift, is it? And so we have all these promises and not very much fulfillment sometimes. Today our text comes from Genesis chapter 12. And I want to ask if you think ever about what things were like before Abram. Remember, we'd had the flood, and then we had Babel. Or is it Babel? Babel, you think? Tower of Babel? You call it what you will. After that tower, then we had the descendants of Noah populating the earth. And down it came until we got to Terah, Abram's father. And Terah went looking for a place out of Ur, and he wound up in Haran, depending on who you ask. And he winds up in Haran. And the question that comes to mind is, how much did people know about God at that time? After Babel, there was a big expedition on forgetting God, wasn't there? I mean, we don't know about anything that happened at that time, but we know that God was abandoned. The whole point of Babel was to do it ourselves and to protect ourselves from God. And so God was forgotten for quite some time. And then God, this mysterious God, appears to Abram, and he appears to him with an interesting offer. Now the Lord said to Abram, get up, get out of your country, leave your family, leave your father's house, and just keep going till I tell you to stop. It's an interesting offer, isn't it? Anybody ever done any navigation? Stacy and I were driving around yesterday, and we were talking and having a good time. And you know how when you're talking, you don't want to interrupt with, you need to turn left here? So Stacy's doing this. So he's talking, I'm talking, we're doing this. And we got there, but I didn't know, because he didn't interrupt to say, well, this is going to be 2.3 miles, and then we'll get there in 6 minutes. He just said this way and that way. And I mean, we could have wound up in Decatur. I don't know. Argyle. I don't know. So we went, but we didn't know where we were going. And that is exactly what God said to Abram. He said, look, you get up and start traveling, and I'll let you know when you get there. That'd be kind of a hard thing to do, wouldn't it? So he got all of his troops and his herds and his family and his servants, and he puts out. Do you know how far the trip is from Haran to Jerusalem? There was no Jerusalem then, but the place where Jerusalem later became to be. I checked on it. If you walked, it would take 6 hours a day, about a month. About a month. A month of travel. Now, we of course, these days, we don't take month-long trips, right? What would your boss say, right? So we don't take month-long trips. We take day-long trips and 2-day-long trips. But he had a month to get there, and he went as far as he was to go. And here's what God promised him, said, if you'll pull up roots, if you'll pull up your stakes, if you'll leave your family, if you'll leave your home, here's what I'm going to do for you. He says, I will make you a great nation. Okay, nation implies a lot of people, right? And great implies good. So that's quantity and quality. He says, I'm going to make you great in quantity, and I'm going to make you great in quality. Quantity and quality, I'm going to bless you. I am going to bless you. And then he says the words, I will bless you. And that's a me to you. You notice that's not passive voice. You will be blessed. No, it's I will bless you. And he says, I will bless you. We always like to say, oh, well, I think you'll receive good if you do this. That's passive, isn't it? But God says, I will bless you. And he said, I will make you quantity and quality great. And then he goes on to say, and I will make your name great. What does that mean? It means I'll make you famous. We live in a world that has forgotten God, just like Abram's world. And here comes God out of nowhere and says to Abram, and I believe says to us, I want you to act in faith with me, and I will make you great in quantity and quality. He says, if you will have faith in me, I will make you famous. Famous, that's an interesting word in our culture, isn't it? Because see, we have this perverted view of fame, don't we? What many people call famous today, we would have called infamous just 40 years ago. I guess if you can start a career like the Kardashians did, we would have called that infamous just a few years ago. They did something that people would have been stigmatized for, and they've turned it into a career. We have lost all of our stigma, and we don't understand what famous means. Famous means Winston Churchill. He was famous because he did great things, courageous things, brave things, things that no one would have thought to do, things that were hard to do. And now fame simply means that a lot of people know your name. And apparently there are a lot of horrible things you can do to get that. Did you know that the people who shoot up schools are usually motivated by a desire to be famous, even if it has to be in death? They go and do evil, vile acts, and they say, you will remember me no matter what. And we say, I will forget you on purpose because of what you've done. So God says, I will make you great in quantity and quality, and I will bless you. And he says, I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Now, before you change the slide on that, please don't. You shall be a blessing is an interesting turn of phrase, because it can either mean you will be a blessing to others, you will become a blessing, or It can mean, I will make you an example of what blessing looks like. Have you ever made a copy on a Xerox machine? Everybody? Was it really a Xerox machine or was it a photostatic copier? Because there's a difference, right? A photostatic copier is a machine that makes those images using the photostatic process, but we all have a tendency to call it a Xerox machine even when it's made by Canon or Ricoh. Why is that? Because the word Xerox has come to exemplify photocopiers. And what God is promising Abram in this text is that he will make the name Abram mean blessing. I will make you an example of what it looks like when somebody is blessed. You will be the poster child for blessing. It doesn't mean I will make you a blessing to others, because that's in the next verse. He says, I'll make you famous. I'll make your name famous for blessing. And then he says, go to the next one. And he says, what he'll do next is, yes, he will, wait for it. I will bless those who bless you. And it's really interesting because the word bless in this setting means a bunch of stuff, a bunch of words combined. It means I will enlarge you. I will honor you. I will bring greatness to you. I will magnify you. It means all of those things. It says, I will make you great. I will magnify you. It says, I will make great those who make you great. And it says, I will curse those, and this is an interesting word in Hebrew. It says, I will curse those who treat you smallly. I will curse those who treat you as insignificant. Now, I don't know about you, but we meet a lot of people every day, don't we? We meet a lot of people in our lives. Teachers, oh my goodness, I can't imagine. All those little kids come in the new year, right? I'm still working in my classes to try to learn the names of my students, and it's just horrible to try to learn all these kids' names. School teachers, am I right? I mean, some of them are just hard. Now, I have one, she's great. Her name is Polite. I guess it's an African tradition to use fun words to name your kids. And so she's from Africa and her name's Polite. I'll never forget her name. The rest, not so much. I have one that's from, her name is Chelsea, I think, but I keep wanting to call her Brittany because they're both places in Europe, right? And so I get so confused. So the names are hard, but you know, it gets even worse when the people that we meet are so numerous and so diverse that sometimes we just get exhausted trying to handle all these people. And I'm going to tell you something we sometimes do is we fall into the lazy habit of categorizing. And what we'll do is we'll say, well, that person's kind of old, so they go in the old box. And I don't have to listen to them because they're just too old. And then we look at the other one, we say, well, that person's like under 30, so what could they possibly know? And we put them in the under 30 box. And we take this other one, we say, well, this one doesn't look like they came from this country, so we'll just put them in that box. And we'll take this other one, and this other one said something really weird the other day, and so I think they may be crazy. We'll put them in the crazy box. And we do that to simplify our lives, but listen to what this text says. It says, I will curse him who treats you lightly. Him who does not give you full credibility, I will curse. And you see, that goes both ways, doesn't it? So when I meet somebody new who stands in the place of Abram, I had better not treat them lightly because they are important. They are God's child. And I need to not pigeonhole them, discount them, and treat them lightly, because the Hebrew word here specifically means, I will curse him who treats you lightly. So here's the question. In this text, he's promising him three things. Are these three things you want? Number one, I'll magnify you in quantity and quality. Number two, I will make you famous. And number 3, I will make you a conduit of my blessing. Are those things we want? Yeah, those are things we want. And then, of course, what he says in the second sentence of each of those lines, he says, I will personally bless you. He says, I will make you an example of blessing, and I will make you a conduit of blessing. These are the things that we are alive for. These are the things that God placed in our hearts a desire to have. You know, there's a study out there about puzzles. Everybody like puzzles? Puzzles are fun, aren't they? You know why puzzles are fun? The research indicates that we like puzzles so much because there is certainty when we solve them. When we solve a puzzle, we have accomplished something and we know it's right. And we can go, yay! Well, by the same token, I have a little problem with computer games, which I like to play. The problem with so many of these computer games, I remember years ago there was one called Myst that came out that was really powerful and really neat. I didn't get to play it much, but the point was there was this whole mystery that you had to unravel. And what used to bother me about unraveling this whole mystery is you could spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours unraveling the mystery. What bothered me about it is to realize that I was unraveling a mystery that someone else had actually orchestrated for me to unravel. Does that bother anybody else? It wasn't really anything I figured out. It was something that somebody kind of put a bunch of clues in the way for me to figure out. It's kind of contrived. You see what I'm saying? Can I suggest that the universe is a puzzle just like that? But instead of a person putting it together for you to figure out, God has put it together for us to figure it out. And here's his instruction to us. He says, if you trust me, I will bless you in all these ways. And the problem is, I'm going to confess to you my problem, folks. My problem is I don't often trust him. Even in the New Testament, he said the same thing. He said, and we know that God causes all things to work together for them who love God, to them who are the called according to your purpose. And I think that's on the next slide. And so he says, I will bless you in the New Testament. And he goes on to say, blessed is God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly realms in Christ. In other words, he's saying, I'm going to bless you. Every time you come to me, I'm going to bless you. He also said, if anyone wants to serve me, he must follow me. Exactly the same message he gave to Abram, he was giving to Jesus' disciples, wasn't he? He says, if you want the blessing, just follow me. And so where's the problem? I have some little pieces of paper, and the little pieces of paper all say on them, in God we trust. But my problem is, I have a tendency to trust the little pieces of paper more than God. I have a problem trusting the food in my pantry more than God. The cash in my pocket. The people that I deal with. And worst of all, I have a tendency to trust myself more than God. Because you see, there are just a few things that I can accomplish. And if I will just stick to those few things that I can accomplish, I don't need God. And I wonder how deluded I can be. You know, we humans, we're pretty amazing about the way we can live in terror. Have you ever gotten ready to sell your house and you start fixing things and you realize you've been living in a broken down house? Anybody ever gone there? Wow, why didn't I fix this 4 years ago? I've been living with that faucet dripping for 4 years. But before I sell it, I'd better fix the faucet. Well, that's crazy. Why wouldn't you fix the faucet for yourself? Oh, I need to fix that cracked window. It's been cracked for 10 years. What are you talking about? Well, you know, somebody else wouldn't buy it with a cracked window. Well, then why would you live there with a cracked window? And the question is, do we have the capacity to recognize what's wrong with our lives, or do we just live in a cesspool People will do anything for a sure thing, won't they? Speaking of cesspools, you know, there's a group out there called privy diggers. Have you heard of them? I don't know how privy translates in Spanish, but surely they had outhouses, didn't they? South of the border. So in the old days, even in really nice neighborhoods, people didn't have indoor plumbing. And so they would dig 20-foot deep holes in the backyard, and they would put an outhouse over it. And when that hole would fill up, they'd dig another hole next door, and they'd move the outhouse over, and they'd fill over the first one. And they'd keep doing that. And some of you think you're old enough to remember that, but very few people really are. Now there are people who dig in those holes to find treasure. They dig in the privy holes and they find gold rings and expensive, valuable bottles and rare items and artifacts from days gone by. And they make money digging in privies. People will do anything for a sure thing. And here is Abraham gets God's offer. He says, just get up and start moving, and I'll find a way to bless you along the way. And my problem is he makes the same offer to me, and I'm not willing to get up and get moving. Because I'm living in a house with a cracked window and a leaky faucet, and I think it's not so bad. It's probably good enough. He says, but I want to bless you with so much more. And I say, yeah, but you know what? The air still works. I can take a hot shower in the winter. I can turn on the air in the summer, and it may not be great, but it's better than nothing. And God said, I have so much more for you that I want to give you. And here's the question. What are we doing to exercise faith? Because faith's a muscle, isn't it? Faith is something that we do and we get and we do and we get. And have we stepped out of our comfort zone? So today, I have an opportunity for you to step out of your comfort zone. And it isn't a pinhole camera. This is a real opportunity. Because we do not put our faith in a plan. We put our faith in a person. The person has come to us, the person of God, and he has said, step out of your comfort zone and I will bless you. So today I'm going to give you an opportunity to step out of your comfort zone. We have some books in the lobby. These nice books. Some of you already have them. Anybody already have their book? Hold it up so we can see. It's a nice gift. Nice gift. 2 or 3 books. Very nice gift. So we've got these books for you and they have your name on them. We want you to take your book from the table out there. And when you get your book, here's what I want you to do. I want you to receive the book as a gift, but a gift for faith, not a gift for you. If you want those books, I'll get you some of those books. I want you to give these books away. I want you to take these books and I want you to find somebody. Now you can find them in prayer. You can find them at your office. You can find them in your neighborhood, or you can find them randomly by going to a fast food establishment and handing them to someone. Okay? But I want you to take these books and I want you to exercise faith by giving them away. And then I want to hear when you come back what's happening. Now, I really don't want this book next Sabbath morning to still be on the table beside your door, okay? And I certainly don't want it on the seat of your car. Seriously, I'm asking you to exercise your faith this week. I want you to take this book, these books, I want you to pray. You can give them all 3 to one person or you can give them to 3 different people, but I want you to pray and ask God to reveal to you who the person is that he wants to receive these books. And then I want you to go and invest your courage and your faith that God wants to bless you in actually doing something physical, and I promise you God will bless you. He'll bless you not only in making your courage stronger, but he'll bless you in helping you to know that what you have done is something you can do again. That you have stepped outside of your comfort zone. The very first words of our verse today were, Abram, leave your home, leave your family, leave your father's household, and go, and I'll tell you when to stop. And so today, some of you, maybe not, but some of you, God is calling you today to step on up out of your comfort zone and to take a walk. And God will tell you where to stop. For some of you, this will result in an immediate, visceral, understanding blessing. Somebody's going to say something when you give them the book that is going to tell you that a seed has reached the soil. Some of you, not so much. Let's talk about Abraham. How many children did Abraham see when God said, I'm going to make you a great nation? How many children did he see? One. He saw Isaac. He saw Isaac marry Rebekah, but I don't think the Bible tells us he saw the twins born, right? So he saw Isaac and Rebekah. He saw one. God said, I will make you a great nation. And Abraham believed it by faith, even though he never saw it. He says, I'm going to give you a land flowing with milk and honey. How much of the land did Abram ever own? One little piece, one little cave that he bought to bury Sarah and that he got buried on. He never inherited Canaan. So I'm going to tell you, some of you are going to give a book away and there's going to be no electric spark. There's going to be no aha moment. There's going to be nobody touch you and say, God has made a new Christian from you today. But God's promises are sure. And he has promised us that we will step out and have faith in him, that he will produce the blessing. He will make us a great nation. And someday in heaven, you will meet your nation. The promises of Abraham are sure for us. And the question is, today, are we trusting in the green pieces of paper? Are we trusting in our own selves? Or are we trusting in God? We go to work. Do we get paid every day when we go to work? Do we get paid before we do the work? No. We get paid at the end of 2 weeks. We work every day on faith. We go to work on faith. Did you know that? We are just going to work on faith. Have you ever heard about those people that their company went bankrupt and they never got paid? Wait, that's just wrong, isn't it? They went to work and they never got paid for it. We work on faith. We do so many things on faith, and the question is, we believe idiots who tell us they're going to give us 35 millimeter cameras. Are we prepared to believe a God who said, I will give you every spiritual blessing in the realms of my kingdom? I will give you a great name and a great nation. And so today, I'm going to ask you to step up and step out. Now, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand how many of you are willing to commit to giving the books away. So here's what we'll do. The books are out there. Every member family has books with your name on it. I want you to take the ones with your name on it. If you're not a member family that has a tag with a name on it, you can take some of those other books so that you can follow through with God's faithful promise, okay? So, but what I want to do, I'm not going to ask you how many of you are committing. I'm trusting that you're committed. So what I want to do is pray for you and for your courage. Can we bow our heads? Heavenly Father, today, we are given an opportunity to give away. And by giving away, to demonstrate that we trust your faithfulness in blessing us. As we leave this room, we are asking you to give us the wisdom of knowing how, where, and to whom to give these books. And we're asking you for the courage of giving them in the right way, in the powerful way, in a meaningful way, so that your kingdom and your glory will be magnified by our faith. Today, please give us an opportunity to exercise this faith. This week, give us an opportunity to exercise this faith. And we look to you for both the courage to exercise the faith and also for the blessing that comes from it. Lord, we believe. Help our unbelief.